How's it going, everyone? So I'm changing a motor in this Ford Ranger that you see behind me. It's a 2.5 4-cylinder. It's rear-wheel drive. But anyway, as you can see behind me, the front wheels are off of it, and the rear wheels are still on it. I knocked the front wheels off because it makes my life easier in terms of letting the vehicle come closer to the ground. And this way I can, bend over the hood and stuff like that much easier, or over the radiator support and that much easier to do what I got to do. It just helps me because I got a bad back. Regardless, anyway, I ran into an issue. I got the left front wheel off with no problem. I got to the right front wheel, got 4 out of the 5 lugs off, and all of a sudden on the 5th one, it started spinning. It was spinning and not doing anything. It wasn't coming off. So I was like, uh-oh, what's going on here? So I take a look, and through the backside where the lower control arm and the ball joint meets the knuckle, I could see just enough in there. And I could see the backside of the stud. Let me show you. Now here it is. And if you look inside there, you can actually see the back of the wheel stud right there. Now a wheel stud, it is pressed in place. It has knurls on it and stuff like that that lock it in place. And it's shaped like basically like a nail. So the back end of it will stop once it bottoms out. And then it gets drawn through the rotor, and it'll sit there. And the knurls are what keeps it in place. So now what happened? Well, as you saw there's a lot of rust on the threads. So each lug on this side came off really tight. I got to clean those threads up. But on that one, it was spinning, and the whole stud was spinning in the rotor. Ruh-roh, what do you do? Well, I sat there and I thought about it for a second, and I tried using a pry bar to hold tension on the rim to hold like pressure outward to see if I could like tension it up, and maybe that little extra pressure was enough to get the thing off. Nope, didn't work. So I'm like, all right, weld it. Problem is, rotor's cast, and the wheel stud is steel. It's very, very, very difficult to weld the cast. You can, it's just very difficult. Usually it's not very strong. That's the problem. So I'm like, okay, I could probably get in there. There's enough room. Let me show you. There's enough room here to get the tip of the welder up and inside. I wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing, unfortunately. But I figured, all right, let me get that up inside there. But now here comes another problem. You see how much dirt and rust is on the backside of that wheel stud right there? You notice all of that? Well, how on earth am I going to get the welder to stick to that? Well, what I used is a descaler. Now I have 2 of them. I have one, I got them from Harbor Freight. They're like 20 bucks, 30 bucks, something like that. I forgot what they are. One I've had for probably 8 years now. I use it all the time. It's very handy. But the needles that are on it are basically like long nails. And over time, the base of them, which is held into the tool itself, it acts like an air hammer. And over time, what happens is the head of the nail basically wears out and they fall out. At that point, when they all fall out, throw it in the garbage, buy another one. It's no point. So I wound up buying another one. But let me show you what I got here. So here's the 2 needle scalers. Like I said, these come in super handy for knocking off rust. And like I said, they act like an air hammer. They vibrate quite a bit. And the ends of these rods are what vibrate back and forth rapidly. Let's see if I can focus in on that. Hello. But what that does is that cleans up the metal. So I used the one here that's already completely worn out. And what I did was I went up inside the hole, and I basically vibrated this thing onto the back of the stud and onto the rotor. And I hammered it pretty good in there. And of course it knocked off all the loose rust. And the fact that this thing's hitting on it, it actually cleaned it up, and it was actually shiny metal. So, okay, now I got a great spot to weld onto. So I got my MIG welder, and I got up in there, and I set it on like the highest settings I can. And I just went to town in there. And sure enough, it did weld, and it welded to the cast. I wasn't sure if it was going to actually stick to the cast or not. Like I said, it could break free relatively easy. So, but I figured at least if I could make like an ear hanging off of it, at least this way, maybe if it spun, that ear would catch the backside of the rotor somewhere and stop it from turning. I'm sure you've probably seen it, like if you're putting a trailer hitch on something, A lot of times you'll get bolts that have like an ear welded to it, or a nut that has like a rod welded to it. Something like stop it. This way, when it goes to tighten, that rod will hit something, you know, back and forth, whatever. It'll hit and lock it in place. This way you don't have to try to get a wrench in there or whatever. Same theory, same thing was what I was trying to do. So let me show you. I did get up in there, I did weld it, and it did hold, and it didn't break free. So let's rotate this right there. And you see that glob that I got on there? But you know what? That glob worked. It did what I needed it to do. Let me see if I can get a better shot of it. Yeah, it did what I needed it to do. It got in there. So I was able to get it off. Had I not had a MIG welder, I mean, even a stick welder would work. It'd be a little difficult because you got to be careful so you don't hit everything else around it. But had I not had that, I would have had to drill it out. I would have to go to Home Depot, get a brand new 1/2-inch drill bit, because I've done it before, and the drill bit, by the time you get to the bottom of that, it's worn out. But anyway, I would have had to drill it out and go that route, and then replace the stud. I'm actually going to leave this alone. I think it'll be absolutely fine. You know, once it's in place and you tighten down the wheel, the backside of that stud is what locks it in place. It's going to be fine. It ain't going nowhere. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. Thought you might want to see that. So yeah, I didn't make a video on putting a motor in this thing. I was just kind of in a rush and had other things going on. Plus, this place was noisy. This is actually the 6th time I'm trying to make this video. I'm finally doing it when everybody left, because it was like kindergarten in here, just screaming and carrying on and all sorts of noise and everything else. So it makes you mental after a while. But anyway, so that's that. And yeah, so I'm gonna put the wheels back on this thing. I'm gonna start it up, make sure it runs. It should be fine. But anyway, that's about it. All right, guys, if you're getting something out of my videos, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.